And you're very welcome along to another edition of Tipp Cast. My name is Shane Brophy of the Nia Garage and joined this week by Paul Carroll of Tipp FM. Paul, fantastic week for Tipperary hurling, a Munster championship at under 20 level, followed by, I suppose, target one, getting it out of Munster. We one of the three teams to get the golden tickets to the next stage. So, and I suppose getting the sense in Thurles, even before the game on Sunday, just it felt like the fans were back on side. It wasn't just because it was a knockout game for Tip, but like fans will come if they believe what they're seeing, and I think there's definitely a belief out there that okay, this Tip team it's not the finished article, but they like the direction they're going in.
Yeah, definitely, Shane. Yeah, I've been commentating on the Tipperary games on Tipp FM since 2023, that campaign, and I think Sunday was probably the first time I felt, in Thurles where there was a big Munster Championship game, big Tips crowd there that really believed in the team. Now, even back in 2023, the game against Limerick was one that stood out in Thurles, but just being down there, I don't know, was it something with the weather? The weather was so good in Thurles. Coming in through the square earlier in the day, it was packed, people everywhere. Coming up by the train station, there was just people everywhere, blue everywhere, huge support, real good atmosphere there from the start. And we've been Tip supporters have been talked about kind of in a bad light for the last couple of years, but I think in all, there's I've always said the people who do go to Tipperary games are always really vocal, and Liam Cahill has kind of said the same down in Waterford last year in Walsh Park. That kind of made a big difference. And I think it really made a big difference on Sunday because, before the ball was actually thrown in, there was tip chants going. And, when we were speaking to Andrew Ormond after, you could see when he was telling us that how much it meant to have the supporters there and how much they feed off that energy that, he was telling the truth. Like, he believed what he was saying. So the supporters there was brilliant. It's just been really enjoyable, and it's such a nice time to win those two games. We can kind of put the feet up this weekend, and it prolongs like the good buzz around the win because we won't be playing for another 3 weeks, if not 4 weeks. So a really good day on Sunday. I have been in great form since, although Man United tried to ruin my week last night.
We won't ruin that. We won't bring that into the equation. But I suppose we were coming into last Sunday. I suppose we were all feeling good at the great win over Clare. God, it'd be a shame to not to build on it and maybe not get the result, and then you get off to the bad start. But in fairness to the supporters, they never gotten the teams back, and there's definitely a sense, and there was a sense of a dirty diesel in the legs there, and I think that was a lot of what was down the first 20 minutes was that the 8-day turnaround compared to 15. Lads probably were still a small bit stiff and sore, like, and once they got up to speed, once they got the staleness out of their legs, like they were a good bit better than Waterford. And even though it took until the 69th minute and Oisin's goal to finally kill them off, like it was, you take out the 1-3 to a point start, it was 130 to 18 points or something, or it was a domination in I suppose for the last 65 minutes.
Yeah, like I suppose that goal had gone in before I'd say anyone had even kind of gotten to their seat or sat down after the initial roar after the national anthem, and like it looked like the way the ball kind of came in that Michael Breen hadn't even really gotten position yet, and the ball was kind of landing in, and it was just one of those things. And Reece Shelley goes short with the puck out straight away. Lads maybe weren't ready for that either, and the ball is straight back over the bar, and 30 something seconds are gone, and it's 1-1 to no score. But after that, Jake got a good score where he had to like run around Sean Stack at one stage to put it over the bar. That got Tip a much needed score, and they slowly kind of got back into it there. But definitely, just probably it takes it probably takes a bit of time to just get up to the speed of a Munster Championship game. And sometimes I'd imagine Tip would have been under a lot of pressure, the players coming into that game, and sometimes I've played in games myself in finals where we conceded a goal after 10 seconds pretty much, and suddenly that it kills all the nerves. It's like, oh right, I don't have time to be nervous here, I need to get into this game. And I think Tip did that really well, and they showed really well for the ball. And Liam Cahill always mentions the word bravery when he was talking to us after games, and Reese with the puck outs, but Andy Ormond showing for the puck outs and taking them in stride, and a lad on his back, he was able to catch a lot of puck outs, like right kind of head height, lad up on top of him and take him on and win frees and things like that, and Jake as well. And the players are showing really well. Brian O'Mara, Craig Morgan, they're firing the ball around that back line. Ronan Maher pinged one at Sam O'Farrell's feet at one stage, and Sam just first touch cut in off his left and over the bar. So the players are playing with that bravery that Liam talks about. But on the other side of that as well, Waterford probably let us off the hook a bit in that first half. While it did take us a while to get up to the speed of the game in that period, Waterford hit some terrible wide. Stephen Bennett dropped a free short. That was probably their chance to go 7-8 points in the lead at the start of the game, but they never did. And once Tip got that foothold, then they never really released it. There was that point in the second half where Waterford got back level, but you feel like when that happened, Tip went up the gears again. So all in all, it was brilliant. But yeah, Waterford probably did let us off the hook a little bit in that first half.
Yeah, I think even if they probably scored it, I still would have said we would have had time to eke our way back into it. And once we got up to speed, and like once we got, I suppose, especially the puck outs, were able to, I suppose, find guys out in the wing like Sam O'Farrell able to run onto ball. Andrew Ormond, especially, like he was incredible. I think it was a 10 points he was involved in terms of assisting or scoring himself or winning frees. And then like it's definitely a sense of the new blood are inspiring. I suppose this kind of they've reinvigorated the older guard too. You see when Waterford came back and got level, like Darren McCarthy won the 3 frees straight after that level score, including the one that should have been the second of 2 penalties we should have got. But hopefully maybe that bit of luck maybe will hold for a bigger match down the road too. But yeah, no, like there's just real sense of, I suppose, satisfaction and like and no sense that we've done our bit for the year, that it's bonus territory now. Like I think that I don't think that'll be allowed to seep in. Like if you get into the last 6 of the All Ireland, like you're in with a shot of going the whole way. Like I think you have to strike while the iron's hot. Like, and like I remember looking back to 2018 and that young Limerick team winning the All Ireland. Then like, geez, you just don't know when Noel McGrath, Ronan Maher, and a few of those just don't want to hear things like that. And like while Tipperary are sort of, they're in a free swing territory, that they won't be under too much pressure going into the next few games. Really, it'll be all about themselves. Like, and I think that's the encouraging part too. Like it's like there's a real strength within that dressing room. Like, and like I was remarking in my column this week, like how difficult it must have been those first few sessions last October when they got together and trying to pick their confidence up off the floor and the belief that, God, is all this worth it? Like, are we going to be disappointed next April and May? And like it's gone to plan so far. You think like they've performed practically in all the matches this year. Like the loss to Limerick in the league, that was a very high quality game. The league final, okay, we lost by 12, but it was just a mad 12 period before half time. And then the Cork game was a write-off. Like I think we mightn't have won it, but we definitely had no chance starting with 14. So like you'd have to think all in all, if you were to script the year so far, it couldn't have gone much better.
Yeah, and like the point on being in bonus territory or that now, like, yeah, I don't think that's how the squad will be thinking at all. Like, I think a lot of people that I've been speaking to during the week have been saying, "Oh, Joe, if you finish third, mightn't be too bad. You played a Joe McDonough loser and onto Ireland." But like, I'd imagine every player in the dressing room is hoping, that Waterford can get a result and Tip get into a Munster final, because
against Limerick and in Thurles, like Jesus, like what an occasion that would be. 45,000 sell out.
Yeah. If you're a player and you're in there training for however long and putting in the effort and everything that they sacrifice, and you have the chance to get into a Munster final, of course that's what they're going to want. So either way it works out this weekend. It has been a good season so far, and I'm delighted as well for both the players and the management as well, because there's been a lot thrown at Liam Cahill about time in your run and teams blowing up when it comes to championship after performing well in the league. But like, Tip had no choice but to perform in the league this year, because if we're in this transition period where you're trying to get new players onto the squad, you have to play them during the league. The team needed a bit more stability this year than it did last year, when we were kind of all scratching our heads as to what the starting team was going to be going into last year's championship, whereas this year we had a fair idea of 13 or 14 of the starting 15. So it's been a really good job by Liam Cowell and Michael Beavens and the lads. And yeah, like the way it's played out in the championship, we probably always knew in the back of our heads that, you know, if you could get anything in the first two games, you'd be going well, and then have a real cut at the Clare and Waterford game. And, you know, the way that the scheduling didn't really favour us too much either, with Limerick and then back 6 days later down to Cork, and then a week off before going to Ennis, and the quick turnaround then for the match with Waterford. But they've navigated it really well, in fairness. And yeah, it's real exciting now to be back in the All-Ireland stage, because, you know, last year, you know, I was very nervous actually going down to Thurles on Sunday, just at the prospect of what if we lose. Like, you know, it would be an awful bad buzz. It would be a real long summer of hearing the same old stuff, and questions would be asked about the players, about management. And so I was delighted for them all that they got over the line on Sunday, because now it opens up all the possibilities of what will happen over the next couple of months. So really exciting times now because of that win.
Yeah, and you reflect over the last couple of games, and like changing the goalkeeper, I think, has been massive, and it's no reflection on Barry Hogan. I just think Reese will thread the needle better than Barry. He's not afraid. He's not afraid for one that will end up in the score, as we saw at the very start. He's not afraid, and then Andrew Ormond definitely has been the I suppose the joker in the pack that has caught a lot of teams out. And like, I'm delighted to see him finally coming to the fore, because like, I was a big fan of his at underage level. I just thought he offered something different, that lower centre of gravity kind of a player, quick feet. I thought he'd more of an inside forward, but God, like him at centre forward, like, and he really, Waterford just couldn't get a handle on him throughout. And the Tip have that lovely thing now where they can, him and Jake Morris seem to be dovetailing each other off brilliantly. Like, if one has the ball, the other's coming off his shoulder, or vice versa as well. And then you have Darren McCarthy. Okay, didn't score from play, but like he's getting if he's not scoring from play, he's winning frees. So that's effectively the same thing. And like, he's one of those that he knows yet he's not physically probably strong enough to maybe take on a corner back and get away from him. So he's smart enough to know, like, if I do that, I could lead to an over carry. I'll get held up, or I'll be turned over. Like, get on the ball, either draw a foul or bring somebody else into the game. And like Robert Doyle again, another holding Desi Hutchinson to a point. And though I don't think they had too many one-on-one confrontations as well. I think some of that was Waterford. I fail to understand how you have one of the best forwards in the game and you don't play him in the inside forward line, where that's his best, and that's his best position. And like, you'd like to think maybe on Sunday you go for broken Waterford, you put him inside where Cork are the weakest in their full back line. And I think that's it'll be interesting to see if they go down that road on Sunday.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of, hurling can be overcomplicated, and we were probably a little bit guilty of it ourselves in the under-20 final last week, where we have that full forward line of Paddy McCormack and Darren McCarthy and Oisin O'Donoghue. And, you know, at times the lads were trying to pass the ball around in the middle of the field to get the perfect ball in, whereas sometimes you just need to get any ball in when you have that kind of quality. And yeah, like, you know, Desi Hutchinson was caught a very frustrated character when he was coming off the field, that's for sure. But
I believe something happened on that side. We were over in the Orient stand. That was a bit of commotion, was there?
Yeah, when he was coming off, like, you know, where we're commentating, we're right above the tunnel at the old stand, and I think Tip had a puck out at the time, so we're kind of just looking out, and Desi was walking up the coming off the field, and then you kind of towards the tunnel, and he would be going right up the steps to go into the stand, and he just wore his hurley off one of the poles that were of the rail, and just broke his hurley and threw it, and it actually hit John McCormack, who's a guard in Thurles, a referee from Knockavilla. So, you know, there was a few words exchanged, I'd say, just to calm yourself down kind of thing, but he was obviously extremely frustrated. But just to go back on Andrew Ormond, it's great to see a player like that, because you have the likes of Darren McCarthy and Oisin O'Donoghue, who've seamlessly come into the senior setup and made an impact straight away after underage success, whereas Andrew Ormond had the underage success and he probably hasn't featured in the senior team as much as maybe he's expected. And for those type of players, it's easy to kind of throw your hat at it and say, I give it 5 years, whatever, it's not going to happen. But I love seeing a player like that who just stays at it, and probably would have had a lot of people, maybe doubting would he be able to make an impact at the senior grade at this stage. But here he is now, man of the match performance, 2 goals in Ennis, really making a difference. And it's kind of a inspiration to kind of other players coming through that, look, I mightn't be Darren McCarthy or Oisin O'Donoghue and get onto the team straight away, but if I can just steadily improve, that there's something there for me. And that, like, has nearly been the biggest improvement on this Tip team, has been that kind of the 2019 under-20s, the likes of Owen Connolly, Brian O'Mara, Craig Morgan, Jake, Andrew Ormond. They've all kind of...
Billy Seymour on the bench, like, you see...
Connor Stakelum, they've all kind of upped it.
Yeah, and like it's I think the next 3 or 4 weeks, like, you think that if Rhys Shelley and Andrew Ormond have been rewarded for their training form, and like I saw Billy Seymour play for Killadangan against Brackens a few weeks ago, and he looked very poor, and I said to him, so God, he must be a long way off it. Yes, he must have worked his way back into form and training and is now on the bench. Okay, he didn't come on in either of the games, but like, when you're in the 26, it shows you that you're not far away. And like, I think the next 3 or 4 weeks, I think the training is going to be savage. And I'd be thinking the likes of like Garrod O'Connor and Conor Bowe, who have both guys who've fallen out of the 26. You think, okay, guys, whatever's happened in the recent past is gone now. Forget about it. Just go out and maybe don't worry about what's in the past. Go and try and find your best form again and work your way back on the 26. Because you think, if particularly O'Connor, if you can get him back confident and firing and believing in himself, like, there's another asset you could be bringing off the bench, or potentially starting if he gets back to his best. Like, if you're going to go pound for pound, everybody playing well in the forward line, he would be a starter.
Yeah. And like, when Liam was doing the post-match interviews, and he was saying that, I think, it could have been you who asked him about, like, making the decisions about, bringing in Rhys and as some of the other players, Andrew Ormond, and he said that we don't see what he sees in training, and he kind of has the duty of, if lads are going really well in training, he has to reward them. And it's probably a really good way for the whole setup to be, because other players are looking at Billy Seymour or Peter McGarry, who've been on the last couple of squads, and thinking they obviously must be going well in training, and that's why they're there. And if you get dropped off the 26, like the names you've mentioned, now is probably the reset time to be like, right, I know I can get back in if I just get back to kind of good standards of training, and that pushes everything forward, because probably no one on the starting lineup then is even sure themselves that I have to keep up this high standard, and it just pushes the whole thing forward. But even the likes of like Dara Stakelum has been featuring in kind of every game so far and has been making an impact. And there hasn't been many subs used in the last couple of games that haven't made an impact some way. We saw it against
Willie Connors coming in for Allantine, and he was missed.
I
thought it was remarkable that in the period Willie went off for his blood injury, it was the period Waterford got on top, and as soon as he came back, that stopped. Like, it's maybe it is a strange one that maybe it was Willie. There was a few times maybe there was a hole in that middle, and maybe just the balance was just a little bit off. Like, and you think Alan Tynan now, when he gets right, he is a battle to get his spot back now. Like, so that's another important thing as well.
Yeah, and it's building options as well, that okay, maybe Alan Tynan mightn't be right to go for the next game when Willie Connors is there, but then you have Alan Tynan to come off the bench, or different things like that. So but I thought I really like Willie Connors' style of play. He's real abrasive in the middle of the field, but he's really brave in terms of throwing his body on the line. But actually, no matter what way the game is going for Willie Connors, he'll always look for the ball. He'll always pop out and give himself as an option for a puck out or whatever. So and to have the likes of Seamus Kennedy coming on as well, like, I think the substitutes at the minute are working well, in terms of, if you have someone like Seamus Kennedy or Noel McGrath for composure and a bit of experience, Then you've someone like Oisin O'Donoghue, Shawnee Kennelly for a bit of youthful exuberance or whatever you want to call it. That it's a nice kind of balance off the bench as well. And there's probably different options. We're maybe a little bit lacking in full backline cover is probably the only little worry you might have. But I suppose the way the team is set up, if someone was to have to come off for whatever reason, you could drop Brian O'Mara back or Ronan Maher back like we've seen. So, the team is in a good place at the minute, and it's probably a well-earned kind of break now for the players, especially those under-20s that have been on the go, that they would have been able to take a few days off and reset. And I'd love to know what kind of goes on at this time of the year now for Liam Cahill and the management team, because I'd imagine everything is meticulously planned up until that last game in the round robin, and then it's kind of a wait and see job now to see if there's going to be a Munster final or an All-Ireland preliminary quarter final. So in terms of planning training sessions and things like that, it must be kind of a tricky period.
Yeah, it'll be I don't know for myself. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they took a few days off, maybe, because like I say, it's hard to plan to know. Like even if it is a Munster final, you have lads will come in fresh after a week off. Maybe they'll have a couple of weeks. Then they'll have 2 weeks to build into a Munster final. If it's 3, all the better. Like it's worked out brilliantly for the under-20s now. Like I would assume that the 5 20s have been released completely to the Brendan Cummins and his crew to focus on. Like they have a 2-week build up to now to the All Ireland, which is ideal, and like they're in a great spot compared to last year. Thankfully, no injuries. Lads in form. You think Oisin O'Donoghue, like what a week he's had, making his debut off the bench for the seniors, then taking that confidence that the senior management, trust me, goes in and effectively scores 1-8 in the under-20 final, like 1-3 and 1-5 frees, and then comes off the bench and scores 1-1 for the seniors. Like it was a dream week, like, and he's still under 20 next year. Just like a huge upside, the huge potential he has.
Yeah, it is unreal. And I'd say if you're just someone from outside the county looking at Oisin O'Donoghue, you're thinking, oh God, he's a great man in the full forward line. But for Cashel last year, he was kind of dropping back to wing back, and he can kind of do it all. He was centre back on the minor team in his last year a couple of years ago. So he's an incredibly talented player, and that under-20 final performance was one for the ages. I think, what did you say? He got 1-3, was it? He could have got 4 or 5, I'd say, because of all the frees he won. He kind of missed that goal right in front of the goals when Paddy McCormack hit the crossbar. There was the time where he kind of caught it and spun, and the shot just went over the bar. It was just an incredible performance. Everything that was hit into him, he made it stick. And I'd say it was a tough day to be running around after him, trying to mark him when he was in that form.
Yeah, and I suppose ordinarily, you'd be thinking, you have an All-Ireland final, or the time of recording, we haven't had an official fixture yet, but I think the word is it will be in Nolan Park on Saturday week.
Or why? What's the?
I can only think it's like there is a home and agreement between Tip and Kilkenny, and the last time they played in an All-Ireland under-21 final was in Croke Park in 2008, and that was when the 21 and Camogie finals were on the same day. So if you go back to the previous one, it was the replayed final in 06. So I would assume maybe there's a continuation from that.
And was that on in Thurles?
Yeah, but that was in Thurles. Kilkenny won the replay. So I can only think that's maybe the reason. I'd be surprised. I suppose the fact that a lot of the players are familiar with it. They won a minor All-Ireland there. Some have won a second minor All-Ireland. Some played an under-21 or 20 final last year. So it's probably a venue that won't hold any fears for them. They know it won't feel like a true home advantage for Kilkenny. And like we all there last year at the minor final, like was about 12,000 there, and I'd say Tip at least had outnumbered Kilkenny. It wouldn't be decided either 6-6 or 7-5. And that was Tip coming off a poor sort of losing on 20 final and a poor senior campaign. You can only imagine how big the crowd is going to be Saturday week from Tip. You could get Tip 10,000 from Tip, and like I don't think you'll get anywhere near the full house you got Tip and Offaly last year, but you probably get 15,000-20,000, which would be a cracking atmosphere.
Yeah, like in fairness, like Nolan Park is a really good venue for those kind of games where it's the 20,000-ish mark. It's kind of the perfect size stadium. But I think what you mentioned there is true. There's a way better vibe and buzz around the Tip hurling community in the last kind of 2 weeks. So you would imagine it'll be a lot easier for people to say, right, we're going to this under-20 final in Nolan Park. So I would expect a really good crowd at that. And yeah, that minor final last year, and even Liam McCall, again, talking about his post-match press conference or media scrum or whatever you want to call it, he mentioned that minor final last year and how it kind of really inspired his group, and he brought it up with the group that, look how these young lads are performing. So that game now, I was away for that game, listening to it on the radio, and I could hear all the tip, tip, tip chants coming through at all times during that game. So I'd expect a good old support there now for Tipperary. What do we say? It's the 31st, so Saturday week. So I'd imagine we'll get a fixture for that in the next kind of 24 hours.
Yeah, and so just reflecting on the Munster final win, not a convincing. I suppose we got there for a finish. I suppose the penalty we got, I suppose Clare's penalty was a bit soft as well. I suppose that we got the break with the black card. It looked incredibly harsh. I know there's a lot of frustration maybe at the fact that we didn't get an awful lot of the ball in, but I suppose you can kind of understand when Brendan Cummins said after, like when you've guys playing a certain way, like, and it is every team now is trained not to hit the ball blindly inside. Like you sort of have to be looking up as you're hitting it, and I think that's what they were trying to do. And in fairness to Clare, they were putting on pressure out the field, and they're forcing Tip into cul-de-sacs and maybe turnovers. But in fairness, like when they did get a chance to hit the ball in, they made it count.
Yeah, Clare, in fairness to him, really choked that kind of middle third. Like Adam Daly has been one of Tip's best performers throughout the Munster Championship, and he couldn't get a yard of space at any time in that middle third. So that was, in fairness to Clare, and Diarmuid Stritch kind of come out the field, and he's a real hard worker and was disrupting things as well. But I think all in all, well, it's easy for us to say that Tip probably deserved it, but it was very much hinging on that black card at the time, and Tip made that count. And there was talk online then it would Cathal English's goal, but I think that all happens very quickly, and the picture with the umpire looking at it, and like the umpire's looking at the ball, and that happens in a second. He's not seeing, where's that forward's hand, whose hurley is that? He's just looking at the ball to see if it's gone over the line.
Well, technically he was holding his hurl. It should have been a free. I thought it was incredibly ingenious that he was composed enough to lift your man's hurl off the ball and flick it into the net. Like, I just thought there's a bit of cuteness, like, so, like, and like, okay, technically, let's say he was holding your man's hurl, it probably could have been a free out, but like, you rarely see something like that. And like, unless the referee spots it, if the referee maybe had gone in and asked the umpires, okay, did he hold his man, he had his hurl, but like the refs are, people are saying, why aren't there umpires putting the umpires can't call the umpire can call a referee to foul play,
the umpire can't referee the game.
When it comes to scores, they have to wait for the referees to approach them, like, so until the referees are given unless the rules has changed that umpire can call a referee's attention to maybe something illegal that had gone in the score, like they can't do anything.
Yeah, like you can't have umpire ref in the game for the ref, so the ref gives a free and the umpire goes, no, I don't think that was a free. Like, what kind of happens there if it's every time? So a difficult one for referees. And the black card was very harsh, but then if you're to look at the rule book and it's what's the kind of, I don't know if it's a careless use of the hurley or whatever it's called, when someone's running in on goals. I think the fact that the other defender got like the perfect flick away on gunning at the same time, it kind of took everyone by surprise. And it was definitely harsh. But in fairness to Darren McCarthy, if he put that ball wide or hit it straight at the goalkeeper, it could have been a different game. But he stuck it in the top corner, so he's been lethal on the players' balls for both seniors and under-20s this year.
I know we have. I know you have to go soon, Paul. But I suppose to touch on the Tip footballers, fell to Kildare last weekend. Kind of similar in a way to the Sligo match. Tipper, they're a very, very streaky team. Like when they go massive periods of games without scoring, and then they might hit a big blast, and then they'll go quiet again. I'm sure that's probably the one thing that's frustrating Philly and the management. If they can just get when they can mix it with the good teams, they're actually not too bad. It's just these periods where they can't score. It's killing them. And like if they repeat that against Leitrim on Sunday week in Mullingar, they're supposed to tell the top campaign won't go much further.
Yeah, I think from just being at the games, you kind of see the difference in the likes of a Kildare and Tipperary. Just Tip are still very young, and they have a lot of lads who probably don't have as much S&C in them as other counties have at this stage. And that probably lends itself to the kind of streaky play that they might only be able to kind of go in patches and things like that. But it was really bad start for Tip. The first kind of 20 minutes, they didn't really do much at all, and it was kind of seeming like it was going to be a very long day. But then Dara Brennan gets the goal, and Keane Smith, really good young lad from Clonmel Commercials, he kicked 2-2-pointers, lovely left-footed kicker, great player to watch. And Tip got right back in it before half time, got it back down to a couple of points, and Kildare just pushed on. They had a much stronger bench and much stronger physically. Daniel Flynn running through a couple of times, you just weren't going to be able to stop him. He was fit, fast, really skillful running through. So that was probably the difference. Kildare just a little bit more experienced, the kind of more physical team, but it was probably always going to come down to this Leitrim game in 2 weeks' time. Now, Sean O'Connor went off injured for Tip at halftime the other day. It was more so seemed kind of precautionary than anything, because he was out and about on full time and for the second half as well, just on the dugout. So, he'll have to be fit for that Leitrim game. Lethal inside forward, and if Tip have all their lads fit, they have a lot of nice young lads coming through as well. Dai Hogan, Owen O'Connell made his debut the other day.
Ben Comfort had a decent outing as well. Like, so yeah, it's going to take time to develop. Like, and say bringing in those few under-20s, like the minors have had a very, very good campaign. Like, they bowed out last Sunday against Derry. I thought maybe the disappointment of how the Cork game finished up. I said, God, how would they pick them up? Like, they should have beaten Derry. Like, they created way more scoring chances than Derry. They just didn't take enough of them, and Derry's efficiency won them at the game in that Tier 2 quarterfinal. So, like, there's been definitely green shoots at underage, and it'll be about Philly and the boys maybe over the next few weeks. But like, if we can get through that Leitrim game, try and extend the year as much as possible, and then take a bit of momentum into next year.
Yeah, because like, you need to be developing these players, and games will do that. So if they were to beat Leitrim, go into the knockout stages, then that's another week or 2 weeks of training at the very least, and another kind of high stakes game. So that's what brings players on. I think the big thing for Tip now, transition from this year to next year, is just keeping that squad together and making sure that we don't have 14, 15, 16 lads making their league debuts next season. It has to be a bit of continuity there for Philly Ryan and the squad.
Absolutely. Maybe getting some of the guys that have decided to maybe take a bit of time out to come back, but get a bit more experience in there too. Yes, just before we wrap up, I suppose just back to this weekend, and I say we're sitting back seeing what's going to happen, particularly the Cork Waterford game. Do you sense an upset, or it'd be interesting? Like, people think Cork should win, but I reminded of 2022 when Waterford won the league and didn't get out of Munster, that you just don't know. Like, if Cork, maybe a small bit of pressure comes on at the weekend, how will they respond? So I still fancy Cork maybe to do it. But geez, I think if Waterford play with a bit of abandon, maybe play Desi Hutchinson, play Patrick Fitzgerald inside, just have a right good go at this.
Yeah, I think the one thing we've learned from the Munster Championship is it's kind of a fool's game trying to predict what's going to happen. I don't think anyone would have predicted Limerick to absolutely blow Cork out of the water last week. It is a tough turnaround for Cork, because I think it's probably easier for Waterford to get back up after the loss to Tip than it maybe is for Cork to get back up after the loss to Limerick, just because maybe the Waterford loss was first, and then they probably watched on as Limerick beat Cork, and Waterford would be able to say, right, Cork are going to be on the back foot here. We have a right chance against them. So I would be expecting in my head Cork to win, but I would not be surprised at all if Waterford were to produce something, because that's just what we've learned, I think, from this round robin in the last couple of years.
Yeah. I think the big thing for me is how did Waterford approach last Sunday? Did they see last Sunday as their big chance to get out
Yeah.
of Munster? Like, and where will they think, God, if that's it gone? Even though they probably maybe as they were having maybe their post match meal after the game and seeing that what Cork were struggling, they probably perked up and think, okay, these guys are vulnerable. Like Waterford probably are a team that probably set up well against Cork. Like they're mobile.
Hmm.
Over the years they've had good wins against them. So yeah, it'll be
I
nice to
think
be able to
Waterford
sit back
can
on
probably write
Sunday
off.
and see how
Waterford
it
can
works
probably
out.
write off a bit as well. You know, they can probably write off the loss to Tip in the way that, like, okay, Tip scored 2 sidelines, long
Yeah.
range threes, a lot of things like that. We hit a lot of wides.
Mm.
So that's a lot of things that a player will hear and say, right, we can move on from that. Whereas I think Limerick, Cork were just bet all ends out by
Yeah.
Limerick. So that's kind of a difficult thing to get back from. But it's nice for us to be able to put the feet up anyway and watch it all unfold.
Absolutely. That's about it for this week's show. My thanks to Paul Carroll of Tip FM. We'll be back next week to build up to the All Ireland Under 20 final and the next round of the Tailteann Cup, as well as the first round of for Tip's first game of the Camogie Championship, which is starting this weekend. Tip have a bye this weekend, and supposed to be interesting to see. I suppose tonight we're recording Thursday. The Scorts debate is tonight, so hopefully common sense will prevail, and that's the issue put to bed once and for all. That's about it for this week's show. Thanks to Paul. Bye for now.
Thanks, Shane.